name is Mike Balka, and this is my new daughter Kirsten. And I wanted to try to do my best today to honor the loving memory of my beautiful bride and soulmate, Kristy Balka. Kristy was a homeschooling mother of 4, and I found it truly amazing what she accomplished in our 16 years of marriage. Early on in our marriage, I worked a very busy corporate job, and Kristy showed me in the book of Deuteronomy a verse that indicates that the father should be with the children when they rise up in the morning, when they're sitting in the house during the day, when they're going to bed at night, when they're walking in the way, and that you're supposed to constantly be teaching them God's ways. And God used that in my life and convicted me that I needed to spend more time in my children. Because of that, I started praying that God would provide some way for me to work out of my home. And over time, God provided that opportunity, and it turned out to be one of the greatest blessings in my life, because my wife and I worked as partners and just poured our lives into our children. Kristy was amazing the way our home would run. It was a sight to behold. Children had morning routines. They knew when to get up. They got up on time, made their bed immediately before they came down. They spent time with God in the morning having devotions. There were dishes that were washed, tables that were set, laundry that was done. Everybody went where they were going with a purpose and a mission, but at the same time, the house was full of fun and excitement. Kristy kept music playing in the house all the time that built like a very spiritual atmosphere. Christian music was being played constantly in the home, and it just built a really warm, loving environment in our home. Kristy was a person that loved her children in a very special way. She very often would just touch the cheeks of her children and rub them. She loved to touch them and hold them, hold their hands. She just loved her children so much and in so many ways. And she had 2 basic principles in her child rearing technique that I just found very amazing and very valuable. The first thing is she believed that you should tie heartstrings to your children. And she would do this in several ways. When my first son turned about 1 year old, Kristy had read something. She told me, "You need to have talk time with him at night." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she explained to me that when a child goes to bed, that's when they're most vulnerable. And so she encouraged me to climb into bed with him each night after I prayed over him and to spend time just talking to him. And what I discovered was Kelton opened his heart, and he would pour it out to me, and we would talk, and it knit our hearts together. And I tried that as we had more and more children. I would do it with maybe a different child each night, but I try to continue to do that, and she did it as well. She constantly read books to the children. She would sit in a chair or on the couch, and she would surround herself with the kids, and she read book after book. And she went into a tremendous amount of time in finding books that she knew would develop godly character qualities in their lives. And as she read with just tremendous expression, the desire of our kids was to become the characters in those stories and to grow up to be people that had that kind of character. Kristy came up with many other amazing ideas. She had us picking strawberries. She had us picking blueberries. She had us camping over and over, trip after trip. We went on Bible quiz tournaments. Kristy poured her life into Bible quiz and would allow our children to quote chapters of Bible verses hour after hour. And we went on trips to Kentucky, Colorado, West Virginia, all over, encouraging our children in Bible quiz and helping coach their teams. And so anything that our children were doing, she would just pour her heart and pour her life into it. And so that was really her first concept there, was to tie heartstrings in any way, communicating with them any way she possibly could. The second side, though, was discipline. because of the fact that she tied the heartstrings so tightly in first, the children became very receptive to discipline. They didn't resent her because they knew how much that she truly loved them, and they knew that what she was doing was for their own good. So she was very consistent, probably more consistent, certainly more consistent than any human I've ever seen on the planet in terms of discipline. But the way she disciplined, she always tied the punishment to the crime. So for example, if a child was using a toy for offense, the toy would be lost and they could no longer use the toy. She was extremely creative and imaginative in that way, but could always get to the heart of the matter and turn the heart of the criminal to God. You know, Christy was saying to me a couple of weeks, a quote from one of our former Sunday school teachers, Daniel Webster. He would often recite this quote. I believe John Wesley originally said it. She told me, she said, "Mike, don't seek a ministry." She said, "Look and anticipate the fruit of a disciplined life." And that's what Christy was. She was disciplined over and over. She was disciplined in reading God's Word. She was disciplined in the way that she was going to raise her children. That was her life's mission and purpose, was to rear and raise godly children. Christy was a choleric by nature. She had a determination and drive like nobody I've ever seen, and she poured every single ounce of it into being a wife and a mother. And I can tell you for certain that there were no regrets. And now, in conclusion, I would like to introduce you to my wife's crowning achievement, our children. This is my oldest son, Kelton. He's 13 years old. This is my daughter, Ariana. She's 11 years old. This is my son, Grant. He's 9 years old. And this is my son, Carson, and he's 5 years old. In 16 years of marriage, Christy left me more love and a legacy in our marriage and with these children than most people will ever experience in a lifetime. And I would challenge you, how are you living your life? Are you living a life that would have regrets, or are you living a life that will serve your Creator and will last for time and for eternity? Thank you.